Hey, I'm Robbie. We're at Orange Blossom Studio in Phoenix, Arizona. Today I'm going to take you through a track I recorded and produced called Dead Romance by Some Days Are Darker. So let's actually start. I've got the demo that we started with. So let's just listen to that really quick because I find that really interesting.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me after all I'd done?
So some obvious similarities and differences there. So these were recorded by the frontman, lead singer, Lear Mason. The one thing that really jumps out to me right away is the tempo. This is 10 beats slower than what it ended up being. This is 128 and the final beats per minute is 138. I don't think that it was ever meant to be like a ballad and we turned it into a rocker or anything like that. I think it was just one of those things that it just felt better faster. Once we probably started tracking drums, we probably experimented with a couple different speeds and tempos, and that's where we landed, 10 beats faster. So let's dive into the final version. Ours obviously starts with the kind of stripped down chorus. There's a vocal, there's double acoustics, and there is a droning like high synth. Take a listen.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me after all I've done?
So here's your acoustic. That was recorded with Hummingbird, which always sounds amazing. I have this pretty cool mic that is by a company called Go-To Tools, and it's like their version of like a U47. It's a really affordable mic, but it does a really cool thing. I really like it on acoustics. And then of course it's got some, EQ compression, the UAD lexicon, just kind of a vibey reverb, especially for a song like this.
You love me.
And then the drone synth isn't doing anything that crazy. It's just droning. I honestly don't even remember what that is. It's got some modulation on it, some chorus, some sketch cassette. All right, moving on. Okay, so let's look at this intro and verse. These are real drums. They're just kind of a hybrid between, an acoustic kit that I played and some heavy sampling. We've got kick in. A project like this, I know that I'm going to use a lot of samples, and so I don't really need kick in and kick out. The natural sound of the kick, and then the sample's going to do a lot. This is my kick sample. It's just like the 707. Same with the snare. The snare is just a snare top. Got some snare samples that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting as far as like the actual snare sound. And then those are all being sent to a snare reverb. The big influence for this was Disintegration and Sisters of Mercy and stuff like that. All right, and then after that, we've got just the rest of the drum mic. So it's important for us in a project like this to still sound human. This is a kit mic. Pretty destroyed. This is like a mono room. And then the overheads. And then the room mics. So here's all the drums together for this part. It looks like there's a little Lin drum, like clap. And now the bass is 2 tracks. The bass player Chris recorded this at his studio in Ohio. He's very gracious and he gives me his bass amp and a DI. I usually use those in a different way than the normal like bass amp and DI, kind of blended together. I use the bass amp as the main bass sound, and then I use the DI as my effects sound. Again, a band like this, there's going to be chorus on the bass, there's going to be a little reverb on the bass, there's going to be some saturation on the bass. So I've got a completely dry bass amp sound dead center. And then the DI, that's where all the effects are, because it's a mono track. The first thing I put on it is a stereo plugin, and it's a stereo chorus, and it's this Universal Audio Studio D chorus. So I get width, I get effects, I get all this stuff out of this DI track. That's how I blend that DI track in. So this is the completely wet DI track. And then together. Okay, moving on to guitars. Let's see what they're doing. So those are two takes. The first one is the lower register guitar riff. And then there's a stack that's blended in, and it's the octave of that same part. So moving on, this is the synth that happens in the intro. So all the synthesizers in this song are real. They were recorded on a Roland RS-09, and I can't remember who played it. It was probably either Lear or myself. So here's the intro all together. Okay, let's kind of quickly go through the next part. So in verse 2, the new thing that comes in is some electric guitar. I can't remember what guitar he was using. I want to say he was using a Tele, and that is going into his Vox AC30. And then we've got another synth. I think this is just some kind of drone that comes in here in this verse. All right, now we made it to the chorus. So in the chorus, the kind of new things that happen, we've got a tambourine. And then we've got this tom clap part that happens at the end of every bar. Electric guitars, see what they're doing. And the chorus is where the acoustics come back. So they were in the intro, cut out for the verse, and then come back in the chorus. All right, now we've got some synths that are going to be doing some movement, and we've got a grand piano that just kind of like mirrors what they're playing. And then we've got some Mellotron. These were done by Chris, the bass player in Ohio, and it's kind of just a drone part. It kind of gives it like a little haunting vibe. And the reason there's two of these is because they were sent on a stereo track. They were like multiple mono tracks, because you can see like the waveform, like they're the exact same thing. What I do in that scenario when I want something to be wider out, I'll split them into two separate mono tracks. So now they're on their own track. I'll pan them left and right. And then on either one, the left or the right, I usually do the right. I will put a delay, fully wet, no feedback. And then I'll go to milliseconds and I'll just dial in when it starts to develop the stereo sound. And I can't move them not enough because then they'll be weird and phasey. If I pan them too much, then there's going to be like kind of a weird ping pong delay that I don't want. And if I take it off, dead center, put it on, stereo. That's just a little trick I learned out of necessity years and years ago. So here's that whole chorus section together. Okay, now we've come to the bridge. The bridge kind of has two parts. There's sort of like a singing, broken down bridge, and then there's a guitar solo bridge. So here's the broken down vocal bridge. Things just go to like 4 on the floor on the drums. Bass kind of stays the same, guitars kind of stay the same. Acoustics. And there's a synth that I added in there. This was not a tracking day idea. This was a mix idea. I started mixing and I got to this part and I was like, oh, there needs to be something else in there. I kept hearing this melody over and over, and so I just put it in. Safe to say that is most likely an Arturia synth. Okay, now the solo. Drums. Bass is nice and driving. Then we've got some synths. The synth, I think, just plays the bass notes. Again, I think that's that Roland RS-09. Then this is SH-101. It's another real synth that we were messing around with. We had to actually dial in that pulsing meter. We just tried to get as close as we could. It's good at the beginning and then it starts to kind of fall apart at the end. I think it sounds really cool that way. Here's what it sounds like with the track. Now the guitar lead. Let's listen. So I don't know if it was intentional or written beforehand, but this section originally was supposed to be the intro guitar part, and it was supposed to be this. I don't know when or where he came up with this, but I'm glad he did because the part is cool as shit. And that leads us to the last chorus. The only things that really change are the synth and piano parts. So here's what all that sounds like together. Let's move on to the vocals. All right, so here is the intro vocal.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young.
Obviously, it just sounds like it's got a filter on it, and it does. And it's just being saturated with this tube preamp from Universal Audio. Verse, let's hear it.
Round and round in love we go. Where it stops, no one knows.
So this being the post-punk track that it is, it clearly has tons of reverb on it. Nothing special with the recording. I think it's just a U87 into... I think this was before I had my console, so I think this is just going into an API. And pre-chorus...
Our lives become our crime.
So one thing that sticks out to me that I'm seeing a lot is how I'm manually turning down the breaths in between all the phrases. For me personally, I really like leaving breaths in. They feel emotional and cool. Lear has very loud breaths. I don't want to go through and get rid of all of them because that would just sound really unnatural, and I just go in and chop them and clip gain them down. I do a lot of clip gaining just to kind of like even out the vocals. That way, like all the, sort of peaks and valleys are hitting my compressor relatively the same. All right, the chorus, we've got a lot going on with vocals. So here's the chorus.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me after all I've done?
So for this band, it's just one main vocal. You can see that here. Main verse, main pre-chorus, main chorus. I think it's really important for Some Days Are Darker to kind of always have the spirit of a three-piece rock band. Guitar, bass, drums, and one singer. And so all the main elements, the guitar, the vocals, the drums, are based on that sort of philosophy. So let's look at these. The first thing we've got is a vocoder.
Love me, we're free, the hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me?
Okay, now all the background vocals.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young.
We've got an octave below, an octave above, and I think there's just a double in there. So all that together.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me after all I've done?
Now the bridge vocals. The thing that makes this a little different is some baby audio chorus.
Another time, another place, we still make the same mistakes.
Just one of those things. Got to the mix, got to this bridge. It was just more of the same. I just wanted it to be a little different. So I sent it to this chorus effect, and I think it's pretty cool.
Another time, another place, we still make the same mistakes.
Then we've got a spoken word track.
I'm not the man you thought I was.
It definitely took some texts back and forth when I was mixing of the placement. It was earlier, it was a little later, it was where it was at, it was just before that. And that's what we came up with. Now we're at the last chorus. So the last chorus has some gang vocals kind of happen underneath the main vocal. So let's listen to those.
And our hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me after all I've done? Was it easy to love me?
Yeah, and you can see we kind of grew them. So the first one doesn't have a harmony. It's just the main part of that. And then it's got a little harmony at the beginning and end. And then it's got all the harmonies. So here's this last chorus all together.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me after all I've done? Was it easy to love me?
Just out of curiosity, let's see what the demo sounds like here.
Was it easy to love me? We were free and our hearts were young. Was it easy to leave me?
Yeah, that's so cool. It doesn't seem like it's not a crazy line to draw between the two. Obviously, there's drums and synths and everything is recorded properly. That's the privilege I have of working with talented people. They've got really strong visions and you can latch onto that and really cool things result from that. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting. You can like and subscribe for more. You can also follow me on Instagram, Orange Blossom Studio PHX, and we'll see you on the next video.